The year I finally earned $250,000, I sat alone in my own driveway, in a car that cost more than my first house, and I cried. Not because something had gone wrong, because everything had gone right. I had caught the exact number I'd chased for 28 years. And it still, somehow, was not enough. For most of my life, I believed the same quiet promise you probably believe right now. That the next raise, the next number, the next yes, would finally be the one that let me breathe out. I want to tell you what happened the day I actually caught the thing I'd been chasing. Because it taught me something I have never been able to unlearn. This is not a get-rich story. There is no secret account, no side hustle, no prosperity promise. It is about a lie that hardworking, God-fearing people believe without ever noticing. That enough is a number somewhere up ahead of us. It is about the one line of scripture that finally exposed it, and the strange, quiet freedom of the day I stopped running. Stay with me. Because the moment I read those words out loud, everything I thought I was building went completely silent. And for the first time in decades, so did I. My first paycheck was $340 for a week of work, and I still remember how rich it made me feel. I sat at our tiny kitchen table with my wife Ellen, and I made her a promise. When we hit $100,000 a year, I said, we'll be set. We'll finally relax. I believed it with everything in me. I had no idea I was making a promise to a horizon. So I climbed. I said yes to every extra shift, every promotion, every move to a new city. The raises came, exactly the way I had prayed they would. We passed that $100,000 line I had sworn would be enough. And I barely noticed the week it happened, because by then, the number in my head had quietly moved. It was always moving. It moved the way the horizon moves when you walk straight toward it. Every raise arrived holding hands with a bigger life, a bigger house, then a bigger one after that, a car that told the neighbors I had made it, a place by the lake we visited maybe twice a year. Each one felt like a trophy the day I bought it, and like a second job by the end of the month. Looking back, I wasn't building a life. I was furnishing a treadmill. I told myself I was doing all of it for them. That's the part that still aches. I missed my daughter's recitals for meetings I cannot even remember now. I answered emails at the dinner table and called it providing. Somewhere around year 20, Ellen stopped asking me to slow down. She just quietly kept setting a place at the table for a man who had become mostly a roomer in his own home. Then came the night I had chased my whole life. The corner office, the title, $250,000 a year. More than the boy with a $300 check could ever have dreamed. I drove home to tell Ellen, and somewhere on that familiar road, the strangest thing happened. I felt nothing. No finish line, no exhale, just a quieter, more frightening question idling in the dark. Is this it? 3 days later, my daughter asked me something I could not answer. She was doing her homework at the counter, and without even looking up, she said, "Dad, how much is enough? Like, what's the number where you finally get to stop?" I opened my mouth to answer her, and I couldn't. 28 years of chasing, and I had never once decided where the finish line actually was. I had just assumed I would feel it when I got there. I had gotten there, and I felt nothing at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went down to a box of my father's things we had never fully unpacked. My dad had died, with almost nothing the world bothers to count. A paid-off little house, an old truck, and more peace than I had ever managed to buy at any price. I don't know what I was looking for down there, in the dark. I ended up holding his Bible. It fell open to a page gone soft from 1,000 readings, and there, underlined twice, in his careful, patient hand, was a single line I must have heard 100 times in my life, and never once actually heard. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver. I read it again, slower. Shall not be satisfied. It was not a warning about money. It was a description of me. For 3 days, that verse followed me everywhere. I kept arguing with it. I wasn't greedy, I told myself. I gave, I worked hard, I provided for my family. But slowly, I saw the trick I had played on myself for decades. It was never really about the silver. It was the loving of it. The chasing that could never, ever be filled. Because a finish line that keeps moving isn't a goal you reach. It's a sentence you serve, and I had volunteered for it, one yes at a time. And then I saw the second thing. In the margin beside that verse, in the very same steady handwriting, my father had written 7 words, decades before I ever needed them. Enough is a decision, not an amount. I brought the Bible to Ellen the next morning, and I braced myself for I don't know what. Instead, she just started to cry, and she said, I never needed the bigger house. I needed you at the table. 28 years, and the one thing she had been quietly starving for did not cost a single dollar. It only cost me being willing to stop. That was the reframe that changed everything. Earning more had never actually failed me. It had done exactly what it promised to do. My mistake was believing that a number could do a job that only contentment was ever meant to do. Scripture calls godliness with contentment great gain. And for the first time in my life, I understood that the gain was never the size of the paycheck. It was the size of the peace. Something in me shifted after that. For 28 years, my first thought every single morning had been, how do I earn more? Now I woke up asking a smaller, braver question. What is actually enough, and what am I trading away to get past it? It turns out you cannot win a race that has no finish line. You can only decide one ordinary morning to step off the track. So, we did the strangest, most freeing thing I have ever done. Ellen and I sat down at that same old table, and we wrote a number on a piece of paper. A real one. What our family actually needed to live well, to give generously, and to sleep in peace. We said the word out loud, on purpose. Enough. And for the first time in 3 decades, the finish line stopped moving because we were the ones who finally drew it. Then came the part nobody ever posts about. I turned down the promotion that would have eaten another year of dinners. We sold the lake house. We never once had the time to love. I traded a bigger title for a shorter drive home, and it cost me money I will never for 1 second regret losing. And anything we earned past our number, we decided ahead of time, was not ours to pile up. It was ours to give away. And here is the part I never saw coming. Giving that surplus away quietly, and first, before anything else, did something no raise had ever done for me. A raise had always made the finish line move again. Giving made it hold perfectly still. I think that is what my father had known all along. You cannot chase and be grateful at the same time. He had chosen gratitude, and he had called it enough. The first thing I bought with my new enough wasn't a thing at all. It was a Tuesday. An ordinary Tuesday evening home, while the sun was still up, sitting on the porch with Ellen and a daughter who was suddenly almost grown, watching the gold go slowly out of the sky. I had earned $250,000 in a single year just to finally afford the one evening that had been free the whole time. People at work assumed I had lost my ambition. Maybe I had, but a few of them started stopping by my office not to ask how to climb faster, but to ask, almost in a whisper, how I had gotten off the wheel. I would tell them the plain truth, that I chased one number for 28 years, finally caught it, and found it hollow, and that the freest day of my life was the day I wrote enough down and actually meant it. My father never made much money in his whole life, but he left me the only inheritance that has ever truly changed it. One verse, underlined twice, and 7 quiet words in the margin of a book he had read until it very nearly fell apart in my hands. Last week I gave that same Bible to my daughter, the one who once asked me how much is enough. I didn't tuck a check inside it. I just underlined the verse again, so she would know 3 generations had now read it, and beneath his 7 words I added a line of my own. Ask this before the world answers it for you, Dad. So let me ask you the same question my daughter once asked me. Not how much you make, not how much you want, just this. What, for you, would finally be enough, and have you ever, even once, said that number out loud? If this stirred something in you, do one quiet thing tonight. With someone you love, decide on your enough and write it down where you will actually see it. Then subscribe and walk this road with us, where biblical wisdom meets your wallet. Because the next story is about the quiet debt that hides inside a life that looks completely blessed